Tell us about a situation when your intuition saved your life.
These are real horror stories of people from Reddit.
It happened when I was walking home from somewhere. There wasn't much time, but it was winter, so it got dark very early. In short, I overtake some guy in a red sweater and red sweatpants and realize that he's looking at me strangely. Well, I think maybe he's drunk or high. I keep walking. I look back, he's still behind me. I decide to cross the road. He crosses right behind me. I'm starting to feel uneasy. I go around the corner of the nearest house, quickly dash to my home, nervously enter the gate code in front of the house, and stand there waiting. About a minute later, this guy shows up, Mern. He sees that I'm behind the gates with a code lock. He looks me straight in the eyes for about 10 seconds, says nothing, and walks back. I get goosebumps. I woke up at 3 in the morning. For some reason, I felt very uneasy. I see my cat is also on edge, ears perked up, afraid to leave my side. My heart started beating even faster. I couldn't understand what was wrong, because I hadn't seen or heard anything strange. There was just this anxious feeling that wouldn't let me relax. I decided to go to the kitchen, turned on the lights everywhere, and grabbed something to snack on, even though I wasn't really hungry. After a while, I went back to bed. The next morning, I get up and realize that someone tried to break into our living room through the window during the night. From the pattern on the glass, it was clear that someone had tried to quietly make a large hole with some tool, but stopped in the middle of the process. I suspect that I scared him or them off, with the lights being on, changed. Interestingly, at the same time, we were having disputes with our neighbors that had been going on for about 3 years. They used to love walking around our property, so in retaliation, we put up a 3-meter fence between us, which caused them a lot of grievances. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but the break-in attempt happened right after we put up the fence, and 2 days before they moved to another place. That night I was working part-time as a waitress in a pub. Some guy approached me and tried to get my number. I turned him down. So far a pretty normal situation, nothing strange. It seemed to me that the guy didn't care either. Then the bar closed and I started getting ready to go home. As usual, I headed to the back exit to the parking lot, but as I approached the door, I noticed that the motion sensor light outside had turned on. This means that someone was standing right outside the door. This made me feel uneasy, so I went back into the bar and asked the security guard to walk me to my car. As soon as we stepped out of the building, I saw this guy standing around the corner holding a belt in his hands as if it were a garrote, an execution weapon. He apparently didn't expect me to not be alone and started yelling at me, calling me a bitch and saying I should die. After that, he ran off towards the roadway and I never saw him again. And I'm a firefighter. We get a call. A power line has fallen and the nearby trees have caught fire. We jump into our fire truck, head to the scene. Everything's okay. I completely trust our driver and team leader. Our driver parks right next to the neighboring power lines, which are still intact. We get out of the car. Meanwhile, outside, a hellish wind is raging and I see that the other lines are also swaying and could break at any moment. I go to our leader and express my concern. He's like, relax, everything will be fine. Well, okay. We quickly grab the hose and I prepare to extinguish the trees. They were the first priority because there was a high chance the flames could spread to the neighboring house. Then I look up and the wires are swinging wildly. Instinctively I shout, everyone get out of here! But what do you think? A few seconds after we started running away, another line snapped. It remained connected to the pole, which means that if we had stayed, there was a huge chance that the 3 of us would have been reduced to ashes. A friend invited us to a party that his classmate had invited him to. We jump into the car, drive to the given address, and realize that the neighborhood looks somewhat suspiciously sketchy. We see the house we need. There's some light in the backyard, but it's too quiet for a party. We thought it was all very strange and drove back. After some time, our friend called us and said that he had been robbed there and that there was actually no party. His classmate wanted to set us all up. When I was 5, I was almost kidnapped by some strange people. My father and I were in the park. Dad was about 100 meters away from me, chatting with his friend. At that moment, some people approached me, said they had a lot of toys and invited me to play in their mobile home. One of them had already reached out his hand to me when I suddenly felt a strange sensation in my stomach. I looked at my dad and shouted loudly while heading towards him. Years later, it turned out that these people had already kidnapped children. Since then, I always listened to my intuition. Edited. Thank you for the positive comments. When my dad recovered from the shock, he scolded me for running away and talking to strangers. Later, my mom confessed to me that when he got home, he broke down in tears and started blaming himself for everything. But I focus more on the positive. My intuition did not fail me, and now my survival instinct has become even stronger. I believe that this happened to me for a reason. The story is not mine, but my mom's. On November 18, 1987, as a teenager, she came to London to visit a friend. Around 7:20 p.m. while at King's Cross Station, she started feeling strange and decided to take a taxi. 10 minutes later, a fire broke out at the station, claiming the lives of 30 out of 40 people who were inside. If she had taken the subway then, she most likely would have died too. I was at a party in a very troubled neighborhood. As a teenager, I made a lot of foolish decisions. At some point, a major fight broke out on the second floor. I had no idea who was arguing about what, but the tension was rising and I decided it was time to leave. I called my buddies and we left. Not even 10 minutes had passed when we found out that after we left, someone pulled out a gun, fired a few shots, and accidentally injured a girl. Later, it turned out that someone had stolen a coconut from that guy. He didn't like it and he came back with a gun. He started threatening people, lost control of the situation, and shot an innocent girl. Changed. Let me clarify right away that by coconut I mean drugs, not the plant. It was October around 8 in the evening, so it was already dark outside. Some guy sat next to me on the bus and said something like, "What a wonderful weather today." I didn't pay any attention to it. Then he got off at the same stop as me. My intuition started hinting that I should be cautious with him. I crossed the road so that he would get a bit ahead of me and always remain in my line of sight. It's important to note one thing. To get to my house, you need to go up a small hill, along which runs a high brick wall. It's a very secluded road there. Usually I always listen to music while passing this stretch, but not this time. Reaching the middle of the hill, I feel that something is going wrong. I take my phone out of my pocket and start dialing my mom. At that very moment, I hear someone speeding up behind me and rushing straight at me. I immediately realized it was that guy. I turned sharply, looked him straight in the eyes, and answered my mom. "Yes, Mom, hi." This clearly scared him off. He suddenly slowed down and acted as if he was just out for an evening jog. I explained the situation to my mom and told her not to hang up. Her boyfriend ran out to meet me and walk me home. And that guy just vanished. He was definitely running towards me, I'm sure of it. The fact that I turned to him and started talking to my mom clearly unsettled him. My daughter was a year and a half old at that time. She had a slight cold, but usually slept perfectly fine. I woke up in the middle of the night with a terrible sense of anxiety and discomfort. Something was wrong, but there was no obvious reason. I got up, had a snack, and tried to calm down a bit. I decided to check on the kids once more before going to bed. They lived in the same room. I went in there and immediately heard a faint wheeze coming from the crib. It was so quiet that it was impossible to hear it from another room. I pick up my daughter and feel that she is breathing very quickly and with great difficulty. We go to the hospital. The child is taken from me for the night, and they give her an inhaler because, as it turned out, she had a lack of oxygen. In the end, they diagnosed her with reactive airway dysfunction syndrome caused by a cold. And it in turn triggered an asthma attack. I was 14 years old and studying in middle school. One day while returning home from school, I noticed that some man was following me. He was walking with his head buried in his phone, trying not to look in my direction. He was wearing a cap, so his face was not very visible. In general, I immediately sensed that he was kind of strange. As I approached my house, I saw that he was still behind me. I understood that it was unlikely he was our neighbor because I knew everyone in our building. At the last second, I decided not to enter the building, turned around and headed towards the store. Then I called my mom and waited for her to pick me up. A few weeks passed. We were watching the news, and it turned out that 2 days after my incident, an 11-year-old girl from my school was kidnapped right near our house. They caught the guy, and he looked very similar to the man who was following me. Considering the timeline and how close it happened to us, I am almost certain it was the same man. I was riding a motorcycle with my friends sitting behind me. We were driving on the highway out of town and at some point found ourselves behind a large truck loaded with old tires. Suddenly, I felt that we shouldn't drive right behind him and decided to slow down a bit, thereby allowing him to distance himself from us. Just as I slowed down, a tire pops out of the truck and lands right where we would have been. Once my wife and I were at the farmer's market in downtown Chico, California. It's important to note that I am a very tall white guy and my wife is a very short Asian woman. We're walking around picking things out and suddenly I see two big guys across the crowd. One was also tall, the other short. The short one had a swastika tattooed on his forehead just like Charles Manson. We made eye contact. He looked at me, then at his friend, and pointed at me with his finger. I informed my wife about it and told her that we'd better get out of there. She tried to calm me down like, "What's this nonsense?" She said I was exaggerating, but I insisted and we left. About 6 months later, we were watching the show America's Most Wanted. And guess who we saw? Our two bodies arrested in Oroville for a double murder over drugs. We still occasionally recall this story. 15 years later, it still gives me chills. Sometimes I like to smoke a bit. Once I tried calling my dealer and he wasn't picking up. After some time, he finally answered and said, "Bro, there are a lot of cops around today. Come over, but make it quick." I headed out to see him, driving for about 10 minutes. Suddenly, I start feeling a strange nausea and anxiety. I remember what he told me and think, forget it. I went back home. In the evening, I watched the news. A gang of meth dealers was busted. 6 people were arrested. I checked the address, and it's my guy's house. I still thank the heavens that I turned back that day. Otherwise, who knows, maybe I would have been behind bars too. Thank you very much for watching. In the comments below the video, tell us about a situation when your intuition saved your life. And don't forget to watch our other episodes. Goodbye.